A local historian traces the roots of aspen tree drawings back to the conquistadores. You know ski season is just around the corner when Durango Mountain Resort starts making snow. And do you believe in ghosts? IDTV news correspondent Shawn Fergusson finds out who believes in spirits on this Halloween edition of Inside Durango News.
This portion of Inside Durango News has been brought to you by the Payroll Department, providing La Plata County businesses with personal, professional, and accurate payroll services since 1993.
I'm Ashley Dixon, coming to you from one of the largest outdoor patios in Durango at the Powerhouse Science Center on the Animas River. Durango's tourism industry saw double-digit growth in the amount of lodgers tax revenues that the city and county collected this past summer. But the new executive director for the Durango Area Tourism Office told city and county officials that the local industry may not be able to sustain those trends without an increase in its marketing budget. Dato Executive Director Bob Kunkel presented a 3-year plan to the city and county officials on October 28th. That, along with several other strategic initiatives, recommends a 1% increase in the lodgers tax and a commitment by the city and county to use incremental lodgers tax funds solely for marketing. During the past 7 years, the city of Durango has chosen to tap the lodgers tax fund to support the free trolley, to fund the steam park feasibility study, and in support of downtown business development position that Kunkel once held, as well as other projects. As a result, Dato's share of the city lodgers tax fund has dropped from 92% of revenues to 68% of revenues. And Kunkel said the drain eventually will impact Dato's ability to compete with other regional destinations for visitors. For 2015, Dato is budgeted to receive $90,000 less than it did 7 years ago. The City and County Lodgers Tax Fund began in 1987. The county assesses a 1.9% tax. The city collects a 2% tax from hotels and motels. Visitors pay the tax when they pay on their hotel bill. The city and county agreement with the Durango Area Tourism Office is to spend lodgers tax revenues on destination marketing programs. Kunkel says Dato has experienced some mission drift itself during the past few years by spending money on things like sponsorships, memberships, and other programs not directly related to destination marketing. He proposes to reallocate more than $75,000 of current Dato expenses towards marketing programs. The change includes eliminating a $25,000 special events grant to the Business Improvement District, which has used lodgers tax funds as a grant to local nonprofits and area organizations to market special events to out-of-town visitors. Kunkel says the funds need to be focused more effectively on Dato's comprehensive out-of-area marketing efforts. Kunkel said he'd like to see the city deductions rolled back by $25,000 a year if Durango and La Plata County want to stay competitive in the destination tourism market. In a comparison of regional competitors, Durango ranks at the bottom for tourism marketing. Santa Fe, Sedona, and Telluride each spend $1.2 million a year on destination marketing. Grand Junction spends about $1 million a year. And Durango? Less than $500,000. Dato has asked the city to commit the allocated portion of the 2014 and 2015 lodgers tax toward marketing the community, which would return funding to historical levels. He also asked both the city and the county to support raising the lodgers tax by 1% in 2016. The tax will be paid by tourists, but it does require approval by local voters. The combination of funding would result in a $500,000 annual increase that would be used to expand advertising in destination markets. It would also be used to support marketing programs that will draw additional airlines to the La Plata County Airport. The Durango La Plata County Airport currently is courting United Airlines to provide a direct flight from Houston. Dato and the Glacier Club have committed $300,000 to advertise in the Houston area to fill seats on those flights to Durango. If successful, the airport plans to go after direct flights from other hub cities, such as Chicago and Los Angeles. Kunkel says that the investments are critical to the area's economy. Every dollar of county lodgers tax spent on marketing generates nearly $7 in revenue. In the city, a dollar generates more than $10 in revenue. To see copies of Dato's presentation to the county and city, log on to the respective county and city websites at co.laplata.co.us or durangogov.com. He's been called one of the most impactful entrepreneurs in the world, and he's only 28 years old. Daniel Epstein, founder of the Unreasonable Institute in Boulder, Colorado, has collaborated with entrepreneurs from throughout the world to help them start businesses that address some of our world's most pressing problems. He was the keynote speaker at the 8th Annual Economic Summit, presented by the La Plata County Economic Development Alliance on October 22nd at the Sky Ute Event Center. IDTV business correspondent Monty Greshkin met with Epstein for a one-on-one interview about his experiences.
So what is it about you? How were you raised? Why are you such a great entrepreneur?
Well, I don't know if I am.
Well, you are successful, you're fun, you inspire others. So you're
fun, maybe inspire others, successful, up for debate.
Well, is your mom still panicked about the 700,000?
No, but she probably is about the next one.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, you know, I've spent 8 years. The last 8 years, every year, I have gone to less than 1 comma in my bank account, which means you're in the hundreds of dollars, right? And now that's because we're launching new companies and constantly leveraging and constantly betting, right, onto those companies because they kind of have to. But I think the reason that I'm inclined to be entrepreneurial is I think everything's nature and nurture. Everything's both, right? You know, actually, Einstein has another really good quote. I didn't say this one up there, but he said that when somebody asked him what makes him a good teacher, he said, well, I don't teach my students, I create the conditions in which they learn.
I love that.
Right? And so if we think about entrepreneurship, it's not can you teach entrepreneurship or is it born? It's what are the conditions that we can create in which entrepreneurship thrives.
Okay,
right?
and what would those be?
Well, I would say one that my parents raised me on, and we were just chatting about this a little bit, was my parents raised me to respect values and not rules. Or maybe a better way to put that is they did have rules.
I'm sure they did.
Right?
I'm a mom.
Yeah,
I get it.
They had rules, but values trumped rules. So what I mean by that is, you know, if I was 14 years old and I had a couple drinks, my parents wouldn't have cared. If today I have a couple drinks and I get behind the wheel of my car and I'm 28, my mom would kill me.
Right.
Right? There are real consequences to our actions that trump sometimes the seemingly like contextual arbitrariness of rules, right? And so if you feel like something is right, but the rules aren't framed around it, then that's when you should break the rules or reinvent the rules. And I was really raised in a very small way growing up to, I think, start to really see that. And that kind of trickled through. I think the other side was, I have 2 older brothers, we were talking about that. And you know, basically my oldest brother, very strict, always had a curfew, could never cuss, all these types of things.
That would have been me.
Right?
Yes.
So, I mean, he's a pharmaceutical economist now.
Yeah.
He's kicking butt, you know, in like big pharma and doing amazing stuff, but that's kind of where he's gone on that. My middle brother was a little bit in the middle, like my parents were kind of strict, not really. You know, so he
played off both sides?
He did off both sides. So he's a surgeon, but he opened his private practice way before he should have in a lot of ways, right? It was really risky. And by the time my parents got to me, they just said, I don't care what you do, just don't kill yourself. Right? And like and have a good heart about how you're doing it.
So, Daniel, tell us, you've been to Durango, you are a Coloradoan. What do you think is unique and special about Durango, and how might we be that entrepreneurial hub for Southwest Colorado?
Well, I think you already are that entrepreneurial hub. How you continue to do that and take that to the next level, that's probably most exciting, forward-leaning. But I would say a couple things that I've experienced in the last few days. I've probably asked maybe 30 people, are you from Durango? And only 1 had said yes, right? Everybody else has chosen to live here. I think that's amazing, to live in a community where smart people from all around the world, all around the country are saying, I want to live here because I love the lifestyle of it, I love the community of it, I love the beauty of it. I think that that's huge. So that would be a massive thing, that this is a place people choose to show up. And second one, the universities here, Fort Lewis. In particular, I got to spend some time with their leadership. I think it's amazing the amount of alumni who are here, the amount of talent that's coming through that university. And then I'd say there are some huge success stories, and Mercury is clearly one of them. Like an almost $2 billion acquisition from a startup in Durango, that's huge. You should be waving that on like every single flag Durango has, because I think that will develop more gravitas for the startup community here and get more people involved. I notice there's new accelerators launching, there's meetups happening, all of that. I think that needs to continue, but the biggest thing I've learned from Boulder, living out in Boulder, Colorado, is that the startup community really shows up there, right? I think most of the entrepreneurs in Boulder see it as their job, yes, to be the CEO of their startup, but also to be a very active community member and leader. And it doesn't matter how old they are, what stage they are, everybody's showing up. And I think that's happening here, but it can happen more above the radar, right? So I think more brands could almost get created, like Startup Week and Startup Weekend were created out of Boulder, right? And that's a thing that everybody was doing anyways. They just branded it really well and said, this is coming out of here, right? And I think there's so much of that going on in Durango. And so to kind of step up and beyond Durango, start marketing the activity here in terms of startup community, that'll be huge, because it's going to have even more gravity, even more people are going to start showing up here. Eventually, then probably everything ebbs and flows, and once 1 million of the smartest people in the world have come to Durango, the whole reason why Durango's magical is going to be over. So there's got to be.
Well, there's that balance,
yeah.
And hopefully it'll continue to be there. Greatly appreciate your time. Thank you for making the trip down to Durango, and we look forward to seeing you more and having you welcome you back.
I look forward to it as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you. Come on.
Temperatures are expected to drop as Halloween transitions into election week, and that means snow in the high country. I'm Scotty Smith. Stay tuned for this week's weather trivia later in this broadcast. This portion of Inside Durango News has been brought to you by the Payroll Department, providing La Plata County businesses with personal, professional, and accurate payroll services since 1993.
El Moro Spirits and Tavern is located at 945 Main Avenue in the building that once housed the El Moro Saloon. Our food is modern rustic, common foods from the early 20th century refreshed with modern culinary techniques. With handcrafted cocktails, an extensive beer list, and 40 wines, our beverage menu is approachable and affordable. For more information, call 259-5555 or visit elmorotavern.com.
This portion of local news has been brought to you by Alpine Bank. Locally owned, locally operated. Alpine Bank.
Welcome back to Inside Durango TV. I'm Ashley Dixon, coming to you from the Powerhouse Science Center on a gorgeous fall day here in Durango. Some call them tree graffiti, others call them art. But for one local historian, Arborglyphs provide a glimpse into a history that began in 16th century Spain. Ruth Lambert, Cultural Programs Director with the San Juan Mountain Association, recently finished a book that traces the cultural tradition behind Arborglyphs along the Pine River Piedra Stockway north of Bayfield. It's called The Wooden Canvas, and it's been released with an exhibit about Arborglyphs at the Animas Museum. Arborglyphs are tree drawings, and volunteers with the San Juan Mountain Association recently cataloged and photographed more than 1,000 drawings by Hispanic sheep herders who spent summers with their flocks in the high country. Lambert says that the drawings were recorded as art, but they're much more than that. They represent a way of life that stretches back to the conquistadores of Spain.
The book captures the history of people moving into the area and the cultural traditions behind the herding, which has a long tradition that expands back into Spain, Old Mexico, and then New Mexico and the frontier, and then into Colorado. And the seasonal migrations are part of the management, the husbandry of sheep.
Sheep herding in southwest Colorado literally has its roots in the Spanish exploration of the Southwest. Coronado brought the first sheep to the area in 1540, and as the Spanish established settlements along the Rio Grande Valley and into northern New Mexico, they brought their sheep with them. Sheep herding spread into Colorado with the designation of the Tierra Amarilla land grant by the government of Mexico. Hispanic settlers continued to move north into the new territory.
And there were a couple of things in the traditions of Spain and Old Mexico that encouraged the expansion of the sheep economy. And one of them was a system called partido. And that was where young herders worked for sheep owners for livestock shares. And they would do this under contracts of 2 to 3 years. And the contracts would state that they would manage the owner's sheep, and as new lambs were born, a certain number of those lambs were theirs. So the first year when the lambs were born, they continued to be herded and managed along with the owners. And at the end of the period of time, they could terminate the contract and he could take his livestock with him. So that was a way, without any economic outlay other than their labor, they could start a small band of sheep. And they did that and was very successful.
In the 1860s, demand for wool for Civil War Army uniforms fueled an explosive growth in the sheep industry. And at the same time, Hispanic sheep herders began settling along the San Juan River from Farmington to Pagosa Springs. And in southwest Colorado, the cattle industry was starting to grow as well. Both sheep herders and cattlemen moved their stock to the high country each summer, and conflicts between sheep herders and cattlemen grew fierce. There were hangings and house burnings, and the infamous murder of William Howe in a confrontation on the San Juan River north of Pagosa Springs. In a trial that had to be moved to Durango, Montoya was acquitted, but not without accusations that witnesses and jurors had been bribed. By the turn of the century, the federal government stepped in to regulate sheep grazing in the high country and established designated routes for sheep herders to drive their flocks to the grazing allotments.
About 1905, when what is now the San Juan National Forest was to establish official driveways. And the Pine Piedra Stock Driveway was noted as a U.S. sheep driveway. And this was to move sheep through a relatively safe corridor out of the area of conflict to their pastures through cattle grazing territory. And it really did help reduce the conflict.
Lambert said Arborglyphs usually are concentrated in the areas where sheep herders camped alongside their flocks. Most Arborglyphs include names, dates, hometowns, and an occasional drawing. And despite popular conceptions, fewer than 5% of Arborglyphs contain naked women. While cattlemen and sheep herders were battling it out over grazing rights, other men were battling out the elements to bring electricity to southwest Colorado. Arthur Esther Greenfield documents the creation of the electrical power system at the turn of the century through unique photos of the men who risked life and limb to electrify the country. Called Tough Men in Hard Places, the book uses photos from the Western Colorado Power Company archives at the Center of Southwest Studies at Fort Lewis College. Western Colorado Power was founded in 1913 from dozens of smaller power companies that had been established in the region to serve local communities. Its records were donated to the Center of Southwest Studies after it was absorbed by the La Plata Electric Association. Greenfield is a volunteer archivist, and the book grew out of one of her projects at the center.
One of them came across the table, and it was a picture that just blew my socks off. It was of a riderless horse up at Cascade Creek, and his reins were going down to the ground, and the shadow of the photographer was in the foreground of the picture. And it was a picture captioned power poles in the high country, and it was snowing, and it was just beautiful. And I thought, well, who took this picture? And then as I organized the pictures, I started noticing how many of them were taken by this man, P.C. Schools, who took most of the pictures in the book. And it took me 3 years to finish the project, but I kept him in mind. And at the time I was writing articles for the Durango Herald, and I thought, I'll write a story about P.C. Schools. And they have an oral history taken from his adult daughter. And I went through that and some letters, and I wrote the story, and the Herald published it, and a publisher saw it and called me up.
Greenfield distilled the 85 photos in the book from 8,000 in the collection. Because she found the photographs in the Center of Southwest Studies, she held her debut book signing at the Center Library on October 23rd as part of the Center's annual book sale and fundraiser. In a presentation before a small audience of about 40 fans, Greenfield said that the Southwest Colorado was the birthplace of the first ever electrical generating station to produce and transmit alternating current. The station is located at Ames, Colorado, a small ghost town near Ophir on the San Juan Highway. In 1891, the first spark emanated from the Ames plant. It generated enough electricity to travel 2.5 miles to provide power to the Gold King mine. But it wasn't Southwest Colorado's unique place in the history of electrical power that attracted Greenfield to the subject. It was the men and the challenges they faced as they built an electrical system through the rugged mountains of the San Juans. Men died to bring electrical power to the rural Colorado. They were buried in avalanches, electrocuted, crushed under heavy equipment, and drowned in flumes. Greenfield said that their sacrifices make the photos in her book that much more poignant.
What did they have to go through to do this job and bring electricity to this area? And that just moved me. It wasn't the technicality of the picture. It was the fact that this man, P.C. Schools, seemed to focus in on people instead of huge landscapes or power poles with no feeling. He had a heart, it looked like to me.
Copies of Greenfield's book are available at Maria's Bookshop. Official election day is Tuesday, November 4th, and if you still have your mail-in ballot, you'll want to make sure that you mail it in time to reach the La Plata County Clerk's office by 7 p.m. Now keep in mind, postmarks do not count. Your ballot must be physically present at the clerk's office to be counted. If you don't want to mail in your ballot, you can drop it off at a number of locations, including the 24-hour drop boxes at the clerk's office in Bodo Industrial Park or at the Bayfield Town Hall. Other drop-off locations are at the Ignacio Town Hall and the La Plata County Courthouse. Voter service and polling centers are located at the clerk's office, Bayfield Town Hall, and the La Plata County Fairgrounds. In the meantime, if you're still trying to decide between Republican J. Paul Brown or Democrat incumbent Michael McLaughlin for the State House seat, tune into a debate between the two sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Archuleta County, airing now on Inside Durango TV. Next up, I toss it down to Jordan Alexander with sports.
This portion of local news has been brought to you by Alpine Bank, locally owned.
Candace Jeep has a busy schedule. She runs an audiology practice in Durango. It's not easy running your own business. That's why she chooses to bank at Alpine Bank. Being able to make business deposits without stepping out of the office saves time. And she loves how the Alpine Bank mobile app makes it easy to keep track of personal finances from anywhere, giving Candace the freedom to focus on what really matters. Alpine Bank in downtown Durango and Three Springs.
This week's sports news from Durango and further afield is brought to you by Mercy Regional Medical Center, inspiring health.
I'm Jordan Alexander with your local sports update. In college news, Fort Lewis College football continued to go from strength to strength as the season comes to its final stages. After Colorado School of Mines rained on the FLC homecoming, the Hawks went and did the exact same thing to Mesa State University on Saturday night in Grand Junction. Mesa began the scoring with a minute left in the first quarter after a 10-play drive. 12 seconds later, FLC's Jaquel Thomas returned a 75-yard kickoff to close out the first period of play. FLC kicker Kip Castana earned the Skyhawks the extra point. Thomas found himself in the end zone again, this time off a Jordan Doyle 11-yard pass to put FLC up with 5 minutes left in the second quarter. Before the halftime break, the Skyhawks scored again through Doyle's 3-yard rush to leave the Hawks in a commanding 21-7 lead at the break. After a quiet third quarter, redshirt freshman running back PJ Hall rushed for a 24-yard touchdown, resulting in a lead of 21 points and what looked like a comfortable win for Fort Lewis. Mesa dominated the fourth quarter, scoring twice within 2 minutes from strong offensive play, pushing the FLC defense back time and time again. With 7 minutes left, the Mavericks had pulled the lead back to 8, but a missed extra point kick hampered any chance of a late win. Final score, Fort Lewis 28, Mesa 20. 15 of the Skyhawks' 22 first downs came from rushing plays, and in total, FLC gained 370 yards offensively on 84 plays. Next up for the Fort is Western State Colorado University at the Skyhawks' home of Ray Dennison Memorial Field at noon on November the 1st. Bayfield High School Volleyball has secured the third seed in the Colorado High School Activities Association Class 4A Regional 3 tournament, which means the Wolverines host number 22 Grand Valley and number 34 Estes Park. At 20 wins and only 3 losses, the Wolverines are in great shape as they head into the postseason play to progress to the state tournament. The Wolverines need to overcome both opponents, which should be familiar ground as they've won their last 6 regional bouts and haven't missed a tournament since 2007. The action begins this Saturday. In other news, Montezuma Cortez High School senior Rachel Denby took on the cream of the Colorado cross country crop in the Class 4A State Cross Country Championships on October 25th. The competition took place in 80-degree heat at Colorado Springs. Denby finished the race in 38th place overall out of 186 competitors. Head cross-country coach Paul Copps told the Cortez Journal that her pace put her in the top 20 competitors after 2 miles, but her pace slowed as the race progressed. In Class 2A, the Mancos High School boys team finished second overall. And finally, Durango High School Demons Soccer are in the hunt for playoff glory versus Littleton this week. You can catch the pre-match interview of that with head coach Dalen Parker. Tune in to IDTV's very own soccer news show, Back of the Net. Head to durangotv.com for all the latest soccer news. Now, last week I met with Wayne Barger of Fort Lewis College Athletic Department to discuss their athletic training program. Let's take a look. So today I'm here with Wayne Barger from Fort Lewis College. Wayne, how are you doing?
Great, Jordan.
Great to see you. So Wayne, tell us your job title, because I can't remember off the top of my head.
My official job title is Assistant Athletic Director in charge of Sports Medicine, External Operations, and Development.
That's a mouthful.
Exactly.
So I know from being a student athlete myself previously, you're in charge of the athletic trainers, making sure they go out with the teams. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Well, basically, the athletic training program has evolved over the last 20 years that I've been here. And the primary role and responsibilities of the athletic trainers are ultimately the health and well-being of the student athlete. And we've gone from one, being me, in '95 to now where we have a staff of 5 plus me in 2014.
Yeah.
And they cover everything from the prevention of athletic injuries, in evaluation of athletic injuries when they occur, management, referrals, rehabilitation, counseling, advising, consulting, those kind of things. So the staff of, again, 5 is dispersed across we have 12 varsity sports at Fort Lewis College, and everything from football. Then they have an athletic trainer that's with volleyball and women's basketball, men's soccer and men's basketball, women's soccer, women's lacrosse. So we try to get everybody covered throughout the course of the year and all the things that they need to get done.
And obviously underneath that 5 staff, you then have your student athletic trainers.
Yes.
And how does it work with teaching them? Do they start with any experience at all, or is it a learning process as they go?
Well, we're very fortunate over the years, again, that Fort Lewis College has made the transition and the evolution of an athletic training education program. In order for you to be employed as an athletic trainer, you must be nationally certified, and our athletic training education program prepares those athletic training students for that. We have where they can start off with, in today's world, there's more and more athletic trainers at the high schools, so they're coming in with more experience, but ultimately they go through an observation phase to find out if this is really what they want to do, to a professional acceptance phase of where they have specific coursework, academics that they have to take, in addition to their clinical experience, and in that clinical experience is where they work under their preceptors as they're covering athletic practices and games and so forth.
Yes. So after all of that practical experience, that must set them up perfectly for when they move on away from college and into the career path.
We always hope so.
Yeah.
We try to provide many opportunities. Our athletes, as yourself, gave us lots of practice.
Yeah, I was pretty good. I wasn't injured that much at all. Speaking of injuries, though, you've got so many different sports. Is there a kind of a common injury that you foresee? I hear there's a lot of knee injuries, ACLs, MCLs. What's kind of the most common injury that you've seen?
Well, I mean, right now, Jordan, is basically the hot topic is concussions, right? So everybody's much more keyed into making sure that those are being addressed.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, yes, knee injuries, ankle injuries, shoulder injuries, all those things will come about with athletics, and you really have a hard time going, well, then we're going to have more of this year than any other year.
Yeah.
But the concussion one is the one that everybody needs to pay very close attention to, and that goes back to your listeners. Concussions aren't things to be taken too lightly because of the fact that they make a huge difference. The easiest way I describe it is from the standpoint that I can see a swollen ankle or a swollen knee. That's pretty easy. When we get swelling in the brain, that's very difficult.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been very enlightening. And after this, more Inside Durango news.
This week's sports news from Durango and further afield is brought to you by Mercy Regional Medical Center, inspiring health.
The secret to savoring the delicious Moscow Mule is to serve it in a copper mug. Here at Urban Market, we know everyone likes to show some style while cocktailing, so our copper mugs come in a variety of shapes and sizes. The recipe is simple: half a lime, 2 ounces of vodka, and 4 to 6 ounces of ginger beer. Sit back and relax With your Copper and Moscow Mule mug, you'll be looking good and feeling good.
Next, the business update, brought to you by the First Southwest Bank and the La Plata County Economic Alliance.
You're watching Inside Durango News. I'm Monty Grushkin with your update on business. Consumer spending is up, more jobs are available, and the unemployment rate remains low. All of those indicators add up to the continuing moderate growth in the economy. That's according to Allison Felix, Assistant Vice President and Denver Branch Executive at the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. Felix offered her take on the state of the local and national economies as the lunchtime keynote speaker during the 8th Annual Economic Summit presented by the La Plata County Economic Development Alliance.
And you can see as we move to 2015 and 2016, we're expecting fairly moderate growth. So we're expecting growth somewhere between 2.6 and 3% over the next couple of years.
Felix said most of the recovery from the recession and the subsequent growth in the gross domestic product can be attributed to improved consumer confidence and spending. Consumer spending accounts for 70% of the U.S. economy, and spending has increased by more than 4% over the past year. The economy also is benefiting from low long-term interest rates. Credit is easier to acquire right now, so it's spurring investment and consumer spending. Felix attributed the increase in consumer spending to consumer confidence in the recovery from the Great Recession.
Looking at that overall black line, consumer confidence in October, or the preliminary reading in October, is the highest that it's been in 7 years. So even with some of the volatility that we've seen over the past month, it was almost a little surprising that we didn't see more of a dip in this consumer confidence number. But overall, you can see consumers continue to get a little bit more confident about the recovery in the U.S. economy, and that confidence should help translate into additional spending.
During the recession, consumers stopped spending and paid off household debt. As a result, they have more disposable income now. In addition, home prices are on the rise. That means households' net worth is increasing and consumers are borrowing again. Colorado's economy is even more robust than the national economy. Unemployment statewide is at 4.7%, compared with 5.4% nationally, and in La Plata County, unemployment has dipped to 3.7%. In fact, some industries in La Plata County are having trouble finding qualified employees to fill positions. Colorado and La Plata County are setting records in the tourism industry, with a 6.8% growth in the leisure and hospitality sectors statewide. The energy sector has grown by 11.9% in Colorado, and healthcare continues to grow at 5.5%. Bottom line, the national and local economies are expected to grow at a moderate pace of 3% through 2016. To see the complete presentation, visit the Federal Reserve's website at kansascityfed.org/Denver. How do local retail businesses survive in the internet age? Tim Wheeler, owner of Durango Coffee Company, says customer service, competitive prices, and a willingness to stand behind your products will do the trick. Durango Coffee Company is celebrating its 30th anniversary this week with a 30% off sale on Friday, November 7th, free giveaways, and other activities. Durango Coffee Company started out as a small coffee roasting business when owner Carl Rand purchased some raw, imported coffee beans and a small roaster to produce special blends for local restaurants. He later moved to a small shop downtown before moving to Durango Coffee Company's current store location at 730 Main Avenue. Rand is a chef by training, and he opened the store to provide professionals and serious cooks with kitchen gadgets and equipment that they couldn't find anywhere else. The store included a little cafe up front, and baristas served specialty coffees. Wheeler and his wife, Ann, purchased the store in 2004. In the meantime, Rand moved his coffee roasting business to the Durango Industrial Park, where he produces 90,000 pounds of custom roasted coffee a year. The store remains the only retail outlet that sells Durango coffee. Wheeler bought Durango Coffee to become part of the community after traveling throughout the world as a business consultant.
My goal was to basically become a part of the community through the ownership of an iconic business in the city of Durango, essentially.
On any given morning, the cafe is filled with locals who meet over coffee to conduct business or gossip about local events. Tourists wander in from the street to check out the store's collection of local products and Durango-centric tchotchkes. Local cooks find one of the best selections of kitchen gadgets, pans, knives, and other cookware this side of Williams-Sonoma.
You know, in building this business over the last 10 years, what I've tried to focus on is being really a great community location where people can rely on it being a contributor to the community and a place where they can come and participate. You know, either through meeting their friends here, you know, shopping in a place which does have unique items, a rich array of great products, really good coffee. We focus a lot on the quality of everything we do, and having a great customer service experience. And certainly that's the goal.
Wheeler's store survives and thrives in the age of the internet by focusing on local products and unusual items that can't be found readily online. His staff also knows how to use the products the store stocks so that they can provide the knowledgeable cook with advice.
We spend a lot of time and effort to find local products that are, you know, things that contribute, when you purchase them, they contribute back to the community that we live in. They're also not sort of mass marketed type of items. Of course, there are many, you know, things that you might be able to find online or perhaps even at some of the larger chains or something, but that's not a high proportion of our product. We also look for unique things. We spend a lot of time and effort trying to find things that are unique or different, that are not mass-produced.
When Wheeler says he wanted to buy an iconic business, he did just that. His customers are a loyal bunch who are quick to let him know when changes work and when they don't. That depth of customer loyalty was a surprise.
We have a lot of loyal customers, and that many of those customers, they feel a sense of ownership equal or even greater than we do. And so we have to always consider what it is that our customers want and how strongly they feel about the way that this business should carry on. It has a continuity and a life that's beyond what the owner can put into it. It really is the customers. So that was a little surprising to me, the strength of the customer base and the loyalty of the customers.
Durango Coffee Company is open 7 days a week, and beginning next week, we unveil a new monthly feature called Chef's Secrets, where you'll learn how to use some of the unusual gadgets found in Durango Coffee Company's inventory. In the meantime, learn more about the store at cooksandcoffee.com. Do you believe in ghosts? Find out who does in Durango, up next.
The business update has been brought to you by First Southwest Bank and the La Plata County Economic Alliance.
My name is J.R. Ford from Fergusson Springs, Colorado. The one we're looking at the equipment today is Forest Health Company, which is doing the forest restoration work here for the Forest Service. So 1/3 of the power for our community will be produced in thinning the forest around our community. And what we're working in is the urban interface, and so we're actually thinning the forests in areas that the Forest Service needs to have thinned for fire mitigation around our small mountain communities. One other thing that's very important about our biomass project here is that it's a community-scaled project. The same 50-mile radius in which we're thinning the forest and creating a fire buffer around our communities is the same 50-mile radius that's getting the jobs. It was great working with First Southwest Bank on this project. Being a startup, it was hard to get everybody educated and up to speed on what we were doing, and working with Marion and Sherry has been a pleasure, and having them work through all the details for these startup loans. They took an interest in our project, came out and learned all about it, took an interest in the equipment that we were having to purchase, and educated themselves on what it would take to start these businesses up. It's been a very positive experience working with First Southwest, and we hope as we reproduce these projects in the future in other locations, we'll be able to work with them. Very much would like to support anybody that's looking for a bank to use First Southwest.
30 years ago, we served Durango's first locally roasted coffee, and to celebrate, we invite you to join us at Durango Coffee Company on November 7th when we roll back coffee and tea drinks to 1984 prices. 30% off original Durango Coffee Company blend all day. And for the first 30 customers, a 30% discount for everything in the store. Product giveaways, prize drawings, free samples of coffee. Thanks, Durango, for a great 30 years. Durango Coffee Company, a special place for cooks, coffee, and friends since 1984.
Southwest Colorado Lifestyles with Ashley Dixon is sponsored by the Wells Group. This Furry Friends segment is brought to you by the La Plata County Humane Society and Pet House. Help us help them, one paw at a time.
Welcome back to Inside Durango News. I'm here with my buddy Chris Nelson from the La Plata County Humane Society and Jalapeno. Great dog name. And this is our Furry Friends feature. We're talking about dogs and one of the big events you guys just recently had, the Barkin' One. I heard it was a tremendous success.
It was awesome, man. Thanks for bringing that up. It was about 10 days ago now, and we had it down at the La Plata County Fairgrounds, and all the proceeds this year were going towards helping out pit bulls and feral cats, and we raised $32,000.
Oh, that's awesome. That is
preliminarily. We got a few things left to sell, some auction
so
items.
that number could just tally up. You never know.
It could. We had some really great art that was pretty valuable, and we didn't want to let it go for just anything, so we started some higher bids on that. Still down at the shelter right now, and it's going to go up on our website real soon, and we're going to continue the auction until we sell it all. So
nice. Well, congratulations. That's awesome to hear. And that just helps you guys focus more on your main mission, which is helping the abandoned dogs and cats of La Plata County. And I got to say, we got Jalapeno here.
Yes.
He is a Chihuahua, obviously. How old?
He's 5 years old. He was the owner surrender. He's bilingual.
Yes, we've been grilling him in both English and Spanish, and he responds to both.
Yeah.
But he's got such a great personality, a little snaggletooth. But he'd be a great companion for someone who's looking for a smaller dog, because are they in demand a lot, smaller dogs?
You know, they used to be a lot more in demand here in La Plata County, but we've been transferring a lot in, so I think I've sort of flooded the market a little, especially with Chihuahuas. And he's a little bit bigger. I mean, he's 16 pounds, and he's a little, people like the really small ones.
Yep.
But small dogs are more in demand, and a dog like Jalapeno, I think he's been with us for about 2 weeks now, and he's running
gonna
away.
Make an exit.
It's like, enough of this camera stuff. He's been with us for a couple weeks, and a lot of younger small dogs have gotten adopted in the time that came in after him. So I think, you know, the 5 years old and the fact that he's a little bigger than some people would like has kept him from getting adopted. But the great thing is he's housebroken, which for a Chihuahua is no mean feat. Sometimes it's hard to do. And he's also, you know, he's pretty good with other dogs, but he is a little bit hard on the cats.
Hard on the cats, so maybe not your next friend if you've got a lot of cats running around. But for people that you talk to about, you know, going a puppy versus an older dog, there's definitely something to be said for a dog that already has had that training, who knows its way around the block. So you're not really doing as much work as you would if you were training a younger puppy.
Exactly. You know, I'm fostering a puppy right now, and I forgot how much work it is. It's a lot of work. You're constantly keeping him out of the garbage or from chewing your shoes. You know, I keep having socks turn up missing from the laundry. I find them out in the yard. This dog's not going to do any of those things, and I think, will you do it? Sit.
Oh, he wants you so bad.
Come on, sit.
He can sit.
Yeah.
I did see him do it earlier, so I will vouch for Jalapeno on that front. That, you know, you get in front of the camera, you get a little nervous, that can happen.
Yeah, I think he's ready to go. He's just wanting off of this table.
He's like, if you could just get me off this table, that would be great. So for people that want to go down to the shelter and maybe just start to meet a couple of dogs, if they're confused whether they want a large breed or a small breed, what's a good thing to start them on? How do you start that whole process?
Well, you know, first of all, I would say do your research before you come down, especially if you're interested in a particular type of breed. If it's just a size differential, then come down and just meet a few of the dogs. One of the great ways to do that is to volunteer and be a dog walker, and you can take them out for a trial run. Then I just signed up some dog walkers today they're looking for a dog a couple months down the road, and so they want to kind of get a feel for that. So I think it's good to come down. You know, ask questions. Tell us what your lifestyle's like. If you are a couch potato, you should not adopt a border collie that's 2 years old.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a really active person, you know, Jalapeno is probably not for you, because he's not going to go mountain biking or running with you. So let us know what your lifestyle's like, how many hours a day you're it away from the dog. That's another great thing about adult dogs. They're generally capable of sticking around the house by themselves all day without, you know, much attention other than, you know, leaving food and water and a dog door, and they're great.
Nice. So it all starts with going down to Humane Society. They've also got a great social media presence. You can check them out on Facebook. You can go onto their website, lpchumanesociety.org. I got that one down. And then you can go down and meet Jalapeno.
That's right.
We've got plenty more Inside Durango TV after this.
This Furry Friends segment is brought to you by the La Plata County Humane Society and Pet House. Help us help them, one paw at a time.
Whether it's All Saints Day or Halloween, ghosts and goblins are everywhere, at least the kind in costume. But are ghosts real? Inside Durango news correspondent Shawn Fergusson takes to the streets of Durango to find out who believes in ghosts in this edition of Spill It.
Hey, Durango. Do you believe in ghosts? With Halloween just around the corner, we're gonna ask Durangoans if they do on this edition of Durango Spills It.
What makes you believe in ghosts?
I just feel like I've seen some things.
Have you had an experience?
Lots of experiences.
I've never seen a ghost. I've just felt ghosts.
No, you just kind of feeling around.
Sure. There's got to be another side, right?
There's always another side.
You can't explain everything, right? Can you?
I sure can. I hope there's another side.
I think there's spiritual things that could definitely be associated.
I guess I believe in spiritual things.
The souls of people, when they pass, either go to heaven or hell.
The stars are our ghosts.
The stars are our ghosts.
Yes.
That's a good way to look at it. All right.
I see them even around you right now.
One of several buildings in Durango reputed to be haunted by more than one specter. Outside of the Rochester Hotel, I read a story that a guy said the Duke himself, John Wayne, who stayed here, spoke to him through the television. Another possibly haunted spot in Durango, the Strader Hotel, founded in the late 1880s. Lots of stories in this building that could signify haunting. Here in front of the General Palmer, reputed to be haunted.
There's a lamp in our basement, right? Our front deskman is just working one night, late at night. He hears this huge noise in the basement. The lampshade of this lamp is just completely torn to pieces, but the rest of the lamp standing straight, completely normal. Unexplained event. Don't know who did it, don't know how it happened.
Life is better, right? Without being able to explain.
Well, Durango's a bit on the fence about ghosts. There was one. But whether you believe in them or not, you're going to see plenty on October 31st. It's a Friday. Be safe out there, Durango. For Durango Spills It and Inside Durango Television, I'm Shawn Fergusson.
I'm Scotty Smith, and I'm not a meteorologist, but I am Derek Zoolander for Halloween. And I do know people who know the weather, like Mike McCormick, president of operations at Durango Mountain Resort. He guarantees there will be snow in the high country this weekend. Durango Mountain Resort will fire up its snow guns to start making snow this week in preparation for opening day on Friday, November 28th. Temperatures are plummeting with a cold front expected to come through the area just after Halloween. And with the area's dry humidity and lower temperatures, the conditions are perfect for making snow. Man-made snow is not artificial snow. It's the real stuff. It's created by dispersing water into a mist along with tiny bits of material called nucleators. Nucleators can be anything from a bacteria to tiny bits of dust, around which the water droplets attach to form crystals of ice. When the crystals get big enough, they fall to the ground as snowflakes. Snow guns use either compressed air to disperse the water into the air, or they use fans. The amount and quality of snow they make depends on the ambient air temperatures and humidity. The drier the air and the lower the temperature, the better the snow. The point at which the lowest temperature occurs to make snow is called the wet bulb. According to the Snow at the Home website, you can make snow at 39 degrees Fahrenheit as long as the humidity is less than 10%. McCormick says that the Durango Mountain Resort opens with natural snow 6 years out of 10. For those other 4 years, the resort has snowmaking. Snowmaking covers roughly 250 acres of the ski area, or about 16 trails across the mountain. So no matter what, tune up those skis and snowboards. Ski season will start the day right after Thanksgiving. Log on to the DurangoMountainResort.com for more information.
Southwest Colorado Lifestyles with Ashley Dixon is sponsored by the Wells Group.
This is the story of a company that has its roots in Southwest Colorado. A story about two college friends who founded a local business, of their families and the families of their staff, and of generations to come. It's about the concerns we hold, the passions we share, and the bonds that unite us. We are the Wells Group. And for 3 decades, we've been proud to be a part of the Southwest Colorado community.
This portion of Inside Durango News is brought to you by the Durango Arts Center, where Durango creates, promotes, and participates in the arts.
Well, here we are at the historic Henry Strader Theater, and I don't know what it takes to be a tradition here in Durango, but in its 7th year now, it is the Rocky Horror Show on stage, live on stage here at the Hank, and I am with 4 of the cast members, Rodney Goldberg, Mike Moran, Jeff Johnson, and Leah Nicola. Hello. Hello. Hello, hello. I'm going to start with Rodney because you have been in every production of Rocky here at the Hank. How did that happen?
That's a good question, Emily. Emily Flood, I met her about 8 years ago, and we got to know each other from singing karaoke, and she approached me one night and said, hey, we're doing Rocky Horror at the Strader this year. You want to come audition? I was like, hell yeah. So I came down, auditioned, and they hired me on the spot as Brad Majors, because I looked like Brad Majors, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Barry Bostwick, I believe, was in the movie.
Well, I didn't look like him. Like, there's our Brad. And next year they wanted me to be Riff Raff. So I've been doing Riff Raff ever since.
Indeed. This will be your 6th year then doing Riff Raff. Fantastic. All right. Next up is Mike Moran. Mike is, I don't know if you're a Durango native, but you certainly spent enough time here. You're now living in Denver, correct?
Yes, I've been living in Denver for about a year. I spent a few months in Montana working for a theater up there as well. I came back. This is my 4th year in a row. I'm playing both the narrator and Eddie. They seem to keep wanting me back because I have an uncanny ability of playing Eddie without going to jail. Knock on wood. And I just love doing the show. It's such a great energy from the audience. You don't get an audience like this anywhere else, I feel like, for any other kind of show, or at least I haven't. And it's just being in a rock concert, really.
That's a really good point. This is a show like no other. The movie, of course, was like no other, and it has a cult following like no other. So, I mean, does that really help your energy on stage as performers?
It really does. And, you know, doing a rehearsal is just so different from actually, you know, doing a show, because as soon as you get that energy coming, it's a whole other show, really.
It's a good time. If you've never seen it, you really do want to see it. Well, thank you, Mike. I'm going to move on next to Jeff Johnson, who has been in the show before. I know you have played the Doctor, but you're taking on Brad this year.
Yeah, I'm playing Brad this year. This will be the 5th time I've been in the show. I've played a Phantom before. I've played Dr. Scott. I've played Eddie. I've played the narrator. Now I'm going to play Brad, just because it's a different role, and that's what I'm doing now, is I'm playing a different role or 2 every year.
Magenta next year, perhaps?
I'm hoping. That's my dream role, but we'll see. They've always cast it as a woman before, and I'm not sure I'm ready to go in for the surgery in order to get that role, but I haven't decided that yet.
Excellent. Now, what do you... every year there is a different theme. I know there's been steampunk and there's been some sci-fi stuff. This year it's the Roaring 20s. How was that presented to you guys?
They told us it was going to be the Roaring 20s, and we pretty much said okay.
And waited for your costume?
Yeah, waited for the costume. I think they're still going to be serving some alcohol, though, if I'm not mistaken.
That's good. No prohibition. Excellent. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. I'd like to talk to Leah now. Leah Nicola, who are you Durango High grad, is that correct?
Yep. I'm from Durango, and I went to school in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And, yep.
Now living in the Big Apple.
Yes, I've been in New York since 2011, but I have come back every year to do Rocky Horror.
Awesome. And as Janet, what do you like about the role of Janet?
It's a really fun role that just kind of is who I am, quirky and kind of weird and sings loudly. And also just the show in general, like Mike was talking about earlier with the audience, it's just an incredible, incredible energy that comes, that cult following really, everybody who comes into this theater. They know all the shout outs, everybody dresses up, it's such a good time. It's one of the funnest things I've ever done.
Is that right? Well, that's what kind of logistics does it take for you to come here from New York to take, what, maybe 2 weeks and do this? Is it?
Yeah, this year I took off 3 weeks and, just make it work. Luckily, my job back home in New York, they know I'm an artist, so they're pretty flexible, with my schedule as far as shows and gigs over there. And then, if I have a gig somewhere out of town, they're pretty cool about letting me go and do it for a few weeks. So
fantastic. Yeah. Once again, that's the Rocky Horror Show live on stage here at the Henry Strader Theater. There are 2 shows Thursday night and 2 shows Friday night. The late shows are 21 and over. Also an 8 p.m. show Saturday night. That is also 21 and over. It's a Durango tradition here on Halloween. You don't want to miss Rocky Horror at the Hank. Back to you, Ashley.
Arts and Entertainment with Ted Holting has been brought to you by the Durango Arts Center, where Durango creates, promotes, and participates in the arts.
That's it for this week's edition of Inside Durango News. Thanks for tuning in. And make sure to check out our new program, Around Town with Jessica Boston. This highlights the events, nonprofits, and the people that make it all work. If you'd like to be included in the Around Town show, send us an email at ideas@durangotv.com. And for more about what's happening in Durango, check out what'shappeningdurango.com. Post your free event today and join the one-stop, easy-to-use events calendar for Durango. A special thanks to the Powerhouse Science Center for providing the venue for this week's edition of Inside Durango News. I'm Ashley Dixon. Thanks for watching Durango's only local televised news magazine, bringing you content that matters.
Spent last night under cover of the walls that you were steadily breaking down. There's not a lot inside. Tossed in the yard, somehow looking like my favorite room. And all the while you'd say something, though I'm sure I wasn't listening anyway. And all the while singing.